We express our heartfelt gratitude to the chief guest of the occasion, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, who is going to address all of us.
Our guest of honor and a very good old friend of mine, Professor Dr. Shanti Shri Dhulipudi Pandit, Vice Chancellor of the Jawaharlal Nehru University. The guest of honor, Dr. Chonthorn Thoy, the Deputy Director General of the Institute of Culture and Fine Arts of the Royal Academy of Cambodia, whom we heard. Renowned academic, historian, Professor Smriti Kumar Sarkar, former Vice Chancellor of the Burdwan University. Dr. Chandi Prasad Nanda, and of course, last but not the least, Professor Upendra Padhi, the chairman of this conference, on whose invitation, in fact, I am here, and all the ladies and gentlemen present over here. आजी मन बहुत खुशी एथारे उपस्थिता थिबारू. जय जगन्नाथ. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, मुझे ऐसा लगा कि हम उड़ीसा के प्रभाव की चर्चा करते हैं तो उड़ीसा का प्रभाव और भारत का प्रभाव ये तो कोई अलग तो है ही नहीं, एक ही है. तो कम से कम शुरू में मैं थोड़ा उड़ीसा की भाषा में भी एक वाक्य बोलने का प्रयास करूं, बाद में थोड़ा सा राष्ट्रभाषा में भी बोलूं, और फिर जिस भाषा में विदेश के लोग समझते हैं उस भाषा को भी उपयोग में लाऊं. मगर सबसे पहले तो मैं इस विश्वविद्यालय का अभिनंदन करूंगा कि उन्होंने इस विषय पर एक बहुत सारगर्भित चर्चा का आयोजन यहाँ किया. और जब मैं हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ तब मुझे याद आ रहा है, डॉक्टर पंडित, आई मस्ट शेयर दिस विथ यू. जब हम ICCR के विभिन्न कामों के जरिए प्रवास करते हैं तो I had the occasion of visiting Moscow, and you know, in Russia, Hindi is taught for last several decades, right from the Soviet era. तो जो हिंदी पढ़ाने वाले प्राध्यापक हैं उनको हम मिलते हैं जहाँ जहाँ भी जाते हैं. तो मॉस्को यूनिवर्सिटी में हिंदी पढ़ाने वाली एक 70 वर्षीय महिला ने मुझे कहा कि आप वापस जाइए तो हमारे धन्यवाद माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को दीजिए, आपके प्रधानमंत्री जी को. तो मैंने कहा मैं ज़रूर दूंगा, मगर उसका कारण क्या है. तो उन्होंने कहा कि वो एक देश के अकेले प्रधानमंत्री है आपके देश के जो यहाँ आकर भी हिंदी में बात करते हैं, जिसके कारण हिंदी से रशियन ट्रांसलेशन करने वालों को कोई काम मिल गया, नहीं तो उनको कोई पूछता ही नहीं था, सब अंग्रेजी की भाषा करते थे. तो कहने का मतलब है कि जब हम आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहे हैं तो स्वभाषा, स्वदेश, स्वभूषा, स्वधर्म, इन सभी के बारे में हमारे मन में एक स्वाभाविक सार्थक अभिमान होना बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि ये हमारी पहचान है. दिस इज़ आवर आइडेंटिटी. एंड देयर आर मेनी सोशल साइंटिस्ट ओवर हियर. I need not elaborate on this, but identity is not an artificial construct. It is something which provides you the raison d'etre to live a meaningful life. In earlier days, social scientists and journalists especially used to describe cities like Mumbai and New York and Bhubaneswar and Kolkata as melting pot, where all your identities get melted into a different identity kind of. But today it is not considered a right term, and they use the term salad bowl, where you keep all your original identities intact and still become a part of a larger identity. And therefore, I believe we have to emphasize on greater usage of everything that is Indian, including language. और इसलिए मैंने सोचा कि मैं पहले थोड़ा सा उड़ीसा में आया हूँ तो उड़िया में बात करने की कोशिश करूँ और फिर हिंदी में भी बात करूँ. यहाँ पर जो चर्चा हो रही है मुझे लगता है कि बहुत सारा विषय प्रोफेसर स्मृति कुमार जी ने भी रखा है, डॉक्टर पंडित ने भी उसको स्पर्श किया है, और हमारे कंबोडिया के जो मित्र यहाँ आए हैं उन्होंने भी उस पर प्रकाश डालने की कोशिश की है. बट आई वुड सर्टनली लाइक टू pick up from where Dr. Pandit has, in a way, ended her speech, that in our intellectual discourse also, we have to remember that we are from India. We need not always come under the influence, needless influence, I would say, of the West or Eurocentric kind of thinking or the colonial dogma. She rightly pointed out that India is a civilizational state, not a nation state. And in the same vein, I would say that let us revisit the terms which are commonly used by the Westerners. For example, pluralism. I really wonder, इस शब्द के उपयोग की कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है. प्लूरलिज्म तो समाज दुनिया में है, विश्व में है, प्रकृति में है, तो प्लूरलिज्म तो होना ही, उसको वापस बुलाने की क्या जरूरत है. India is the other name of pluralism. Nobody need to teach us about pluralism. We are always plural. The entire universe is plural. मगर बार बार ये थोपते रहते हैं. Indigenous. Again, I really wonder, and I am happy, I must share here, that in 1995, the international community and the United Nations observed the year of the International Year of Indigenous People. And the UN wanted every other country to celebrate this year. I am happy that time our Prime Minister Narasimha Rao ji wrote to the United Nations saying that India is not going to observe this year because in India everybody is indigenous. That is true. हमारे यहाँ ये कोई भेद होता ही नहीं है. जो यहाँ आया यहाँ का हो गया. हम तो सबको भारत माता का पुत्र ही मानते हैं, पुत्र और कन्या. तो मैं मानता हूं कि ये जो विदेश परस्त सोच है उससे जितने जल्दी, एंड आई नीड नॉट रिमाइंड ऑल ऑफ यू हियर सच ए एनलाइटेंड गैदरिंग दैट ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर लास्ट ईयर from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he made a passionate appeal to free ourselves from everything that is colonial. और मैं मानता हूँ कि एकेडमिक्स में ये कॉलोनियलिज्म बहुत कुछ छाया हुआ है. उससे एकेडमिक्स की जितनी जल्दी हम मुक्तता करेंगे उतना इस देश की भलाई के लिए मैं मानता हूँ कि अच्छा होगा. कमिंग टू द सब्जेक्ट, आई वुड से दैट द इन्फ्लुएंस of India and more particularly Kalinga all over the Southeast Asia. I mean, 2-3 facts are very clear and I need not elaborately explain them. But the first important thing is that there are multiple dimensions of India's ancient global outreach. And the outreach of and from Kalinga forms a significant part of that. We cannot talk about, or we cannot perhaps ably grasp the expanse of India's influence and India's global outreach in ancient times without referring to Kalinga. And as I said, there were multiple dimensions. It was through epics, and I must say here that we have in Southeast Asia a very rich country called Brunei. Now, from where the word Brunei has come, etymologically, Brunei, and it is said in scholarly essays, that is derived from the Sanskrit word for the god of the seas, which is Varuna. The exchange of ideas, people, capital and goods, what they call globalization today, was present between India and Southeast Asia since time immemorial. And let me tell you how the influence continues even today. Indian Council for Cultural Relations organizes Ramayana Festival since 2015 every year. And many countries send their very colorful presentations. I mean, troops coming and presenting one story or one chapter of Ramayana or the other. And the most popular is that the Jatayu Vadha. Very interesting. Whether Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, everybody wants to work on Jatayu Vadha. So once we sent an invitation to Brunei, and having sent that invitation, our office was a little perplexed because they thought we did a wrong thing, because Brunei, unlike Thailand and Indonesia, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, is a country of 100% followers of Islam. So how can they send a troop for a Ramayana festival? But now the invitation was sent, so they waited, and the troop came, and they presented a wonderful skit based on Ramayana. And after their presentation, when we were having a discussion over a cup of tea, one of our officials very frankly told them that we were apprehensive whether you would send a troop or not, because you are a 100% Islamic country. The leader of that group told our official that, boss, you are making a mistake. We have changed our religion, not our culture. And that is the importance of Indian culture. It is so enduring. It doesn't matter which God you worship. Culture is the same. And that is why I need not give all those examples, how Garuda is the name of an airline, and how we see Samudra Manthana there at the Bangkok airport. And so many, so on and so forth. I need not elaborate on them. Everybody knows about it. It's a matter of common knowledge. So the point I was trying to make was that while epics constituted one part of our influence, trade, agriculture, music, all these things, even dance forms for that matter, also had their own share of influence over the global community, more particularly the Southeast Asian community. And therefore it was on the one hand cultural, on the other hand economic, at the same time political and diplomatic. But let me tell you that even while doing so, there was absolutely no attempt of any kind of imposition or flattening. Because as we say, and this I believe is the definition of India's approach towards what they call it secularism, which is ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. The God is one, wise people describe it differently. Likewise, if you go through all the details of the kind of forms the Indian epics have taken in all these countries, for example, Fa Lak Fra Lam is the name of Ramayana in Laos. It is basically about the biography of Lakshmana and Rama. Hiyakat Seri Ram is what is being considered as Malaysian Ramayana. Ramakirti Ramakian, I am told it is in Cambodia. Am I correct, sir? So Ramakirti Ramakian is the Cambodian version of Ramayana. Kakavin Ramayana is in Java. Ramaken is in Thailand. Yamayan is in Myanmar. Sumanasantak is, basically it is about Kalidasa and mostly into Indonesia. And likewise, there are many examples which I can continue to give, which explains us as to how Ramayana and Mahabharata have impacted this entire region very deeply and very widely. In fact, I would suggest that it would be a good idea if the university, Kalinga University here, and even the JNU, with the help of ICCR, if we can constitute or float a new idea of Ramayana and Mahabharata countries. Because this is a new block of countries. If we really try to gauge the influence of these epics, I'm sure at least dozens of countries we can certainly enlist. The point I'm trying to make was that culture did not influence the local situations in such a way that it could cause any kind of a flattening. Today what happens? That book we know, which is about the world is flat. And it talks about post-globalization flattening of the economic situation, because level playing field was perhaps common to all, and therefore the columnist said that the world is flat. But unfortunately, due to excessive Americanization and westernization of the entire global community, we find that even in Beijing, we realize that we are perhaps in a Mandarin America. Or when you visit Tel Aviv, you realize that you are in a Hebrew America. You don't get that experience in Delhi, Mumbai or Kolkata, because we have retained our identity. And therefore, our culture, even though it crossed boundaries and went to different shores in different countries, in different societies, it didn't influence them so much that it would cause any kind of a flattening. It allowed the flavor of the local, and still it became a part of the global, which is Indian definition of globalization, I would say. Lastly, I would also say that India's influence was never about military rule or making them kind of subordinate subjects of a particular kingdom. That was never the idea. In fact, and it is not for no reason that the deity that we all worship is Jagannatha. Natha is what? Nath is the guardian. So guardian of the whole world, whole universe for that matter. Not ruler. Ruler is a very small concept. Guardian is a very lofty ideal. And therefore we never went there to establish our rule. Even Rama handed over the kingdom of Ravana to Bibhishana and went back. It was not an extended part of the Ayodhya kingdom. Never. That was not the idea. So imperialism or establishing your rule through military might was never in the scheme of things of whatever originated from India. And therefore, when we look forward as to how do we deal with and take this message of Kalinga and Southeast Asia's civilizational linkages forward, I have two suggestions to offer. Number one, and a renowned academic like Dr. Pandit and Professor Kar are here, I would say that the UGC and other bodies require to consider whether we now have to undertake some kind of new area studies, which is Kalinga studies, Magadha studies, Ahom studies, Chola studies, Maratha studies, because without we studying all these kingdoms in India of the historic and ancient periods, we will not be able to grasp as to what exactly was the contribution of Indian rulers of those days. And therefore, it is required that we have a new area study definition wherein we consider all these things. And lastly, insofar as cultural ties and academic linkages are concerned, and there is abundant scope for that, I would suggest this university may also consider undertaking teaching of several Southeast Asian languages. Because language is the carrier, is the vehicle of culture. We don't have a single department where we teach a Singhali language. We don't have a single department where we teach Burmese or Khmer or Thai language. These are all our sister languages. And sisters have their right. And therefore we need to recognize them. We need to give them some space in our university system, and therefore my earnest request to the members of the academic committee to consider whether we can have these departments established and whether we can encourage our people to study these languages as well. Foreign language doesn't mean only Spanish, French, German, Russian, Mandarin or Japanese. These languages are neighborhood languages, and it is high time we all pay adequate attention to them. Lastly, we started with Look East. And there our Prime Minister went a couple of steps further, and he said, act east. And now we are moving speedily towards that. I would suggest that for academicians and those into the arenas of culture, we also require to move further and from look east to act east to attract east. Let us attract more and more friends from Eastern world, from the Southeast Asia, not just as tourists. Tourists, of course, it is important, but also as students coming over here, also as teachers coming over here, also as universities who have some linkages with establishments like the Kalanga University here. If we do that, I am sure this civilizational linkage between Kalinga and Southeast Asia will be taken to a different level. Thank you very much.